I did want to watch this one. It was a short one. 5 minutes long. Brodie doesn't double dip. I do sometimes. But I think I wanted to watch this one. It's about Australia. Fucking Telstra. Why does Australia have free payphones? That's a good question. I walk past them every so often. Like, why is that there? I don't think I've seen anyone ever use it.
On so many
I don't think anyone's ever used this one either.
of our streets, we still have some of these. But have you ever stopped to notice it or have even used it? I mean, just by looking at it, it just doesn't really make any sense. I mean, it's on an empty footpath on the side of a suburb that's left in a derelict condition. And also the fact that everyone's using wireless communications and stuff these days.
They also, a lot of these also do actually have a Wi-Fi modem inside of them. So a lot of them actually act as like free Wi-Fi points, which I think is actually really neat.
So why are payphones still around in 2026? And why are they free? In the 1990s, the Keating government, in anticipation of the Liberals' plans to privatise Telstra, implemented the Telecommunications Act, and with it, one key standard, the Universal Service Obligations, or USO. And that mandated that Telstra must supply, install, and maintain all payphones
Maintain is debatable, but sure.
across Australia to provide a minimum and reasonable access for everyday people, especially in rural and regional areas. And this is because the government just wasn't confident at the time that the public sector would voluntarily maintain this commitment. Both governments amended the legislation further, tightening the language and marking more clear obligations for the telcos,
Hold on, sorry.
as well as tightening the language.
Fig and I'm just curious which state he's in. Fig and Bloom. Okay, there's a fig and bloom in Sydney. Okay, there's a couple of them. Okay. Sorry, we're not trying to dox this guy.
Language and marking more clear obligations for the telcos, as well as nominating Telstra as the principal operator of these booths, with other companies like Vodafone and Optus charged a levy to cover those as well. In 2021, Telstra CEO Andrew Penn officially announced that all local and national standard calls would be free, but this is after the fact the network gutted over 80,000
Wait, hold up.
calls
Was that a picture
would be
of-
free, but...
Is this Adelaide? I think this... Elements Thai Massage. Okay, let's find out. I feel like this is Adelaide. This feels Adelaide-y to me. Elements Thai Massage. Melbourne? Maybe it's Melbourne. I don't know, this tiling work feels like Adelaide. Okay, I can't find where they are. What else do we see here? Hong Kong style... Wait, let's see if we can find that one. Barbecue and cafe, Hong Kong style. Barbecue, is this the one? No, there's a different restaurant. Wait, is it Times Square Barbecue and Cafe? Is that it? Okay, no, this is New South Wales. Okay, my bad. Okay, this is actually New South Wales. I thought, wow. Okay, I've not been there in a bit. That looked a lot like Adelaide.
This is after the fact the network gutted over 80,000 of them in the last 20 years. So there was clearly a reason for that. Now, the government implemented the USO for a reason, to provide universal access. And while it might be surprising to some, people, even in the 2010s and today, just don't have phones and they need these services. There's also the argument made that cutting these would effectively disenfranchise these people in society. And there's also the fact that wireless telecommunications have been unreliable in natural disasters.
That's very true. Not even in natural disasters, just in regular day-to-day life. They're being kind of rough sometimes.
There are a multitude of different circumstances and reasons which justifies the existence of these booths. And there are even a few that have been heritage listed due to their importance of having them.
Okay.
The network also stripped them back further, not charging users for them from 2023. Quickly, it became apparent that low usage and the fact that it was costing them more to collect the coins meant that there was no real reason to charge users anymore.
And I guess there was no reason to spend the money in upgrading them to receive cards. So it was just like, it was cheaper to just make... I guess that tells you how low the usage was. It was cheaper to make them free than to upgrade them to start receiving card payments. It was cheaper to make them free than to have people pay with coins and go and collect the coins. That's how low the usage was.
And they couldn't pull out of the payphones that they'd put in because they're required to have them in by law. There was also the argument that requiring physical currency to pay in a society where it's much harder to obtain than, say, 30 years ago creates a barrier to entry for those who need it the most. So it was probably best to remove that. And in recent years,
having coins
payphones
yeah,
also being
probably
increasingly recognised as a critical part
Yeah.
of Australian infrastructure, including installations such as wireless capabilities in cities and battery backups in regional and rural areas.
That's cool.
And while they're not intended to serve as emergency shelters, they do fulfill that purpose. If it's sunny out or if it's a blasting...
Do I still use physical money? Sometimes. Really not that often. As someone who used to work in an arcade, collecting game coins sucked. Oh, I can only imagine.
Storm, it is better than nothing. But it is pretty
Once
strange,
every couple of months, I'll say I use physical
that
money.
These are being marketed and perceived as more emergency lifesavers, despite having minimal features. In the UK, many phones are being converted with public safety in mind, with defibrillators in full enclosures, and in some places also having emergency supplies.
That makes
You'd
sense,
think
actually.
For a sparsely
yeah.
populated country, at a minimum, the most remote booths would have these features. There would be many cases where services just won't arrive in time to save someone's life, and having equipment like a defib or a medical kit could change all that. But Telstra...
The medical kit, though, I have a feeling that might get misused. There are some local restaurants every so often. Like, you go into this... Like, there's some, like, restaurants that, like, don't accept cash sometimes. It's getting rarer and rarer. But there's a few that do exist out there. Don't accept a card, sorry. Don't accept card. I've not run into a store that doesn't accept cash. There's stores that prefer cash over card. But... I've never seen one that doesn't accept cash. But yeah, it's like few and far. But also, if you go to like a market, sometimes at the market, the local vendors there will only accept cash. Nowadays, it's pretty easy to get like a square payment thing, and you can actually get like they actually have a system now where you can actually just tap someone's phone with your card and actually pay like that. It's really cool, but it's like fewer and fewer times where it actually is something that I need to use.
Sure, and by extension, the government don't appear to have expanded these services for that purpose. And at the end of the day, these still cost quite a bit of money to maintain, and expanding these to include defibrillators or other things like emergency blankets or medicine would likely explode the cost of the existing program. Also, you've got to factor in vandalism, theft, and what authority and public ownership this would fall under. Would this be a telecommunications infrastructure or a public health utility? So that leads to a multitude of other problems. But at the same time, it doesn't appear to be fully living up to that role that Telstra promotes. And I guess with things like that, a good enough approach is just the way it's going to be. And for some people, while it might appear as a useless relic of the past, it'll be here when you need it the most. And for those who are out there without a phone, this is a lifesaver and a life changer. And of course, for those who play with this on payphonetag.com, it is a fun novelty item to play around and mess around.
Payphone
But
tag?
most importantly, when this inevitably goes up for review, at least they'll know someone is using it.
Okay, that was a fun little video. That was a neat little video. Channel only has a couple of K subs. That's cool. I've walked past them a bunch of times. I maybe I've seen someone interact with one like once or twice, but it's so rare at this point. Like they're kind of just there, right? It's like it's there. Maybe someone uses it, maybe they don't, but it's just like, I don't know. I guess it makes sense why they're still around if there is a government mandate to actually have them installed.